T-minus 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the Launch Sequence Podcast. We got another week, more things to talk about, more fun happening, but it is January, and Star Citizen generally has a quiet January, besides one key event. So I've brought a key member in that key event, actually running the security team. My friend Nargo is coming on to talk about kind of everything that goes into what is essentially the biggest event that happens in game in Star Citizen, what will probably be the biggest party launch to ever happen in Star Citizen, but just like an open-ended long-term endurance race across the desert that anybody can interrupt. It's gonna be crazy, so we got a lot to talk about. But first, thank you for joining me today. Welcome in. How you doing?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. It's a weird time. I'm used to going outside and finding at least frost on the grass, but it's like straight up warm outside. It's like April here. Well, it feels like April. It's not. It's January.
Yeah.
Don't worry, guys. Time is still the same. But like here in Northern California, it is nice outside. It's strange. I mean, I'm condolences and my heart out to everybody in Southern California right now. We have family over there, but up here it's like very normal. So I'm kind of thrown for a loop. But that's my weather. How's the game been treating you?
It's been up and down. A little bit more down than up, especially recently. Understandably so, right? When 4.0 launch first came out, we had a lot of fun with it. We were doing all the contested zones. We were doing all stuff in Pyro. We were having an absolute blast with minimal issues. But definitely right around New Year's, the cracks started to show and the bugs started to pile up. And again, I think that's just a direct result of people coming in like, oh, this is cool, it's working, and stuff is happening. Yeah. And my hat's off to all the folks at CIG who worked through the break to try to push hot fixes just to keep it on live support. That was a Herculean effort, and they will forever have my respect.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some level of retrospective on how they handled the launch of 4.0. Obviously, it's not completely smooth, but they were super... Like, they clearly did everything they possibly could to make sure this came out in 2024. Like, they really pushed it, but also to make sure, like, it wasn't terrible. You know, we talked about 3.0, but look at all the things, 3.18, but look at all the things they did, from, like, releasing the code base in 324 to putting both the live version in 324 still on live now to, like, staying over the holidays. I'm very pleased with how much effort they showed in trying to keep it running, even if it has been kind of a dumpster fire for some people.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
But before we get really into things, I want to give you a chance to kind of talk about who you are to everybody who's coming onto the podcast and explain why you're here.
Sure. My name is Nargosvoge. Short, you can call me Nargo. I am the leader of the Walkers of Sigma 957. We're a small security org, lawfully aligned security org. We had our sights on being the primary org to utilize Titan suits, but those haven't come out yet. And so we've just been filling time doing whatever, the mining, logistics, cargo hauling, FPS combat, ship combat, whatever usually comes across. And then we got involved. I was kind of
hoping that you were going to say that you guys, the Titan suits hadn't come out yet, so you guys just spend all your time fighting battles in Atlas suits.
I mean, we may have done a couple of those, that's for sure. But
dropping in from orbit.
That's right, prepping for Titanfall, literally in all senses of the word.
But you guys. So you do a whole bunch of security. We've actually done some stuff with you guys from GII a few times. Great folks. And you've been contracted to do the Daymar Rally?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, Zool from Atma reached out to us and he said, hey, you guys have been pretty good. Would you like to take on the responsibility full time? And I said, yes.
And is that something that you guys are going to, as an org, you want to just over the course of Star Citizen's lifetime, not just do your own like events and missions and stuff, but you guys want to be a group or company that can like go out and work for other groups during their events like that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I had always kind of envisioned as an org is when the game gets to that point, now 1.0, we could be doing our own thing, and then people on, say, Moon, some farmers would be like, hey, either some like AI pirates, some Vanduul AI, or some player pirates are over here and they're causing problems. Could you go take care of that? Those kind of contracts, as well as protecting events, those kind of contracts are stuff that I would be very interested in doing and continuing in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very cool that it's a possibility, but it's such a pain right now. We really need to be able to give missions to each other.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's get back to current performance,
Sure.
because this talk is going to be very based on whether we think we can get an event of 300 to 400 plus people together in a single place in Star Citizen. And that's very dependent on how Star Citizen is doing. I want to say now, because like when you guys hear this podcast, it'll probably be now. I'm assuming 4.0.1 will be live by Daymar Rally. Might still be in PTU by the time this goes live. But just overall, do you feel like the game is in a place that it's going to work out at this point?
God, I hope so. I really
answer.
don't have a good answer for that.
Hope so.
Oh God, I hope so though. We've been doing a lot of testing, right? As much stress testing as we can, but how do you stress test something where an environment is going to involve more players in one area than it's ever been recorded in Star Citizen history? We have some practice events that are coming up to kind of really do a big stress test. But what I expect is going to happen is I expect there's going to be a lot of launch issues, because historically there have been. But one thing that I'll always give Atmo credit for is hell or high water, they will push through and do their best to make sure the broadcast and events and players get the chance to run their event. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure they'll figure something out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. What are the biggest issues you guys are seeing with 4.0 right now?
Stability, desync. That's probably the big one. Frame rates used to be a big issue, but they're ever since 4.0 did come out, it hasn't been a terribly big issue. But you have a lot of issues where someone will say, hey, I'm over here, I'm at Shubin or whatever. But according to the client of the person they're talking to, they're kilometers away, right? And so how do you organize people to, for example, line up on a starting line when you can't tell where anyone's at?
I mean, half the time you think you're on the starting line, you're like,
right.
You're not.
Right. You're not. And so some of those have been trying. There's been other cases where one of the ways Atmo will give check marks, because there's no real navigation system in the game, is they will share out a box mission. And so you have mission markers for every box, and they'll put a box in all of the spots where you need to go. Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. Well, okay, well, a server crashed. Now you have server crash recovery, which is awesome, but now you've lost the mission. So good luck finding where you're going. A lot of people will say, oh, well, that's what the support craft are for. They're supposed to guide the racer. Well, not sure. Absolutely. But there is a big difference between knowing roughly where you're going and having some course correction or guidance on obstacles that are coming up versus being completely blind and just taking the word of your pilot that says, I need you to, who thinks you're desyncing, by the way, who only has your desyncing position, to say, okay, I need you to turn 30 degrees to the right in roughly 500 meters. Those kind of issues. Those are difficult.
Yeah. And then there aren't box missions, right? As being mentioned in chat right now, there aren't box missions, so you guys can't use those as beacons. And it's really just like the game is fighting you. It's like, don't do this race. I don't want it.
Don't do this.
I don't want to see it.
Don't do this.
Leave it alone. Let me be developed. But really, this is like the Daymar Rally's been running for 7 years now, right?
About, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like this is new. It's so interesting to me to see the problems that plagued it back then that maybe don't now, but to see some of the ones that have stuck around and still do. I want to ask you in a minute about kind of what the biggest ways that the game is presenting problems, like you're saying with the markers not working and stuff like that. But before I do that, I don't think we've even explained really what the Daymar Rally wholly is. Could you give people a little rundown of like what the event we're talking about?
Sure. So the Daymar Rally is an endurance race in Star Citizen that typically lasts anywhere from 10 to 12 hours long. It was started by someone by the name of Corsair, who eventually started Atmo Esports. He was inspired by a real-life event called the Dakar Rally, and it is a ground endurance race. I admittedly don't know too much about the IRL equivalent, but the dream from Atmo was that it was the, and I quote, filthiest race in Stanton, where racers would be responsible for going and replacing their coolers if it expired, replacing their tires if it broke, having pit crew in support ships that would follow them and navigate them around. They'd have to contend with sandstorms, terrain issues, any fauna, flora, and any other issues that would be arise in Star Citizen. And after a couple of years of them doing that, CIG caught wind of this, and they were so impressed by what they were able to accomplish that they eventually became canonized within the Star Citizen universe. So that has grown, and they have been, Atmo has been featured on the past Citizen Cons. 2023, they had a booth there where they were showing their fight or flight. And then last year, they had a booth that was just across from Citizen Con, where they had Enter Atmosphere, and it was this big coliseum where they had racing and fighting and all sorts of other events that was hosted by Atmo. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, very impressive. Biggest event in Star Citizen usually is like 600 plus people. Um, Anybody who's listening, go check out any podcast episode from like this time in January of any of the past years. We usually have somebody from the team on. I think Corsair's been on once or twice. Crucian's been on here a few times. So you can kind of get to hear our discussions and hear how the vibe around the event has changed year over year. It's a fun little tradition, but I appreciate what you guys do because everybody who plays Star Citizen already knows it is challenging at times and to put together such a big event and to put it kind of out there publicly is not only tempting the Star Citizen gods, but it's also putting you guys in putting a lot of targets on your back. This is a completely freely open event, unlike most games where the events are taking place in kind of closed servers or closed courses. You guys are running this out there in the live environment, and you're, as your role specifically is to protect it. Just trying to keep people from interrupting, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's my job is they say I'm the head of security at Atmo. I haven't fought that title, but I think a better title might have been just the official nudger of Atmo, because a lot of the times they will come to me and say, "Hey, we have this idea for an event. What's something that we could do to make sure that it won't get disrupted?" And that could be anything from, let's not have it at this public location. Let's try to do it in the middle of nowhere on this planet. So at the very least, it's harder for people to find us.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's at all viable, let's not do it at a planet at all. Let's do it in the middle of space and the actual dead of space. That way it'd be nearly impossible for anyone to find us. Things like that. Training people on how to actually fight and defend is one part of it. But the bigger part of it is trying to make sure that the fight never is needed. Right? And making sure that the people who are just trying to have fun with an event can have that event.
And that starts to happen outside of the game even, right? Like you're defending against people who will go outside of the game to disrupt the in-game event. How does that complicate your job as running security?
Basically, it can be boiled down to the phrase of, if you don't need to know, you don't know. And it's not a perfect system. I understand that there's definitely the possibility that people can climb the ranks and have nefarious intentions. But at the same time, it is a game, and there is only so much effort that I want to ultimately put into this. If this starts to become where like I'm up at night worrying about, I don't know if the person I just told this to is going to go turn around and they're going to show up with an interest and blow up the event. Like, I don't want to. that's not the kind of game that I want to play. This is supposed to be fun,
Yeah,
right?
it's too much.
And so it just comes down to you have your core people at Atmo that you trust, and then you have your core people on the security side. Then you say, okay, you're in charge of just trying to get this many people on board. And maybe you don't tell them exactly where it's going. Maybe you don't tell them exactly like what planetary system it's at. And then just the day of, you just have everyone jump in your ship, and then you as the pilot will just take them there. You transport them. So that way they never have to set a route. They never know where you're going, things like that. But they can show up and they can be there and they can still, shoot a gun or have a ship or something like that. So that's a couple of the ways we've attempted to alleviate some of the outside influence, outside of the game issues.
Okay. Well, that's kind of the and just to be clear to people, it being open to that sort of stuff is part of the idea that it's a filthy race, right? That's invited. It's like that the Star Wars episode, what was that, episode 1? The pod racing, right? Like the freaking Tusken Raiders out there with snipers.
Raiders,
like
that's right.
Yeah, I remember them saying they want to see people go out there and camp the site and like snipe someone as they're going past. It's just until server meshing came along, that wasn't really a possibility, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I would argue it still isn't, because unless you are really, really lucky with a railgun and your positioning, drivers aren't going to run into you.
True.
Right. And you're not going to be able to run fast enough to catch up to a ship.
Yeah.
Right. You just can't do it. But that doesn't mean, you got things like the A2, the A1, various combat ships that can come in and swoop in. Right. And that does and will continue to happen, I suspect.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of action that Atmo is usually expecting.
I think it'd be cool if somebody raided with hovercrafts. That would be, I think,
Yeah.
that would also provide something pretty fun for the racers. Obviously, they're like, no, please let us race, but at least it's not spaceships coming in and shooting at you.
I would actually be totally open to hovercraft, because the biggest problem with spacecraft is just if they're mass and velocity.
Yeah, they're
right?
so fast.
They're so fast. How do you intercept? You can do things like put up the QED net and force ships to stay in SCM mode, but it has issues with green zones and it's not always reliable with desync, etc. Hover bikes would be so cool. They're hard to detect, so we would only have racers screaming, we're being shot at by bikes, and we're just like, okay, well, where are you? Then we have to figure out where they're at. Like, that would be a fun challenge. I probably shouldn't say that as
the head of security. Come on, come.
I probably shouldn't say that, but I think that'd be fun. That'd be cool.
Yeah, it's like there's a level of like, oh, that's too bad, we're getting attacked, to like, oh my god, this sucks.
Right.
That is, but it's interesting because, again, that's just another thing that, like, if the game worked how it's designed to work, you'd probably be able to scan them out and like know that they're distant and have all these tools. And we go back to that idea that this whole rally was based on the idea of endurance for the vehicle, repairs midway through. Like, it is a survival test, and the game's still not there, even though technically it was kind of supposed to get there in 4.0. I doubt the vehicles would have had that, but we're like right on the cusp of that. And I am interested in hearing from you, like, what are some of the other things you mentioned? The markers not working, the engineering obviously is a thing. What are other things that the game is doing to hold this event back over the years?
Party markers, communications, and the social system. That's probably the biggest one as far as the game stuff. There's a little bit of outside communications that definitely affects things like that, but if the game had a proper social system where you could say you were allied to the Atmo org or something like that and show up with a marker, and that way security could say, oh, these green markers, they're affiliates, so they're part of the race. Anyone who doesn't have the green marker, we just assume is hostile. Things like that. That would help out a lot. But we've been having issues where you won't see party markers, things like that.
Yeah.
We found out one time that if you have over a certain number of party markers, you don't get OM markers. You can't jump. You have no idea how to get to the location you're going because there's too many HUD elements. So that was a fun bug. The other one was the components before they were really physicalized. before you could take and swap out components manually, the coolers on a lot of buggies, they would burn out.
Yes.
And you could do nothing about it.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, that was frustrating.
So it's just like, good luck, guys.
It was really it's a competition with monetary value that's based around a simulation that does not simulate.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Exactly.
That's rough. It's fun though, because almost every year that I've been involved, something's gone wrong, and it was like a pretty good time. There's been countless pirate attacks that caused cool battles to play out. There was the whole running with Kane that one year. There's just like, it is still a sense of camaraderie, and I think it's really helpful to the game. And I think it's one of those things that CIG should look at when they're like, we should focus on getting the game a bit more stable, because these are such basic things that hold you guys back. The social app, it's like, there are so many little things in this game you can't do because you can't just talk to somebody else reliably. And I think a lot of people are going to appreciate the supposed focus that they're starting to put on those things.
I know I do.
Yeah, same here. So server meshing is the big difference this year with this event. For those who have watched the Daymar Rally before, what do you think are some things that they should keep an eye out for that might be different this year because it's running in this new environment?
Well, so as cool as server meshing is, the reality is that it's static server meshing. So we do still have to adhere to the environment of Daymar, Yella, Selen, Seraphim, and all the Orison being run on the same server.
Right.
We have found out that there are still limits when you get too many people onto that shard. Things become really desynchy, really laggy. Yeah. And so the thing that we were all looking forward to, obviously, was this big chaotic mess where you have, gosh, I just had a meeting with Corsair before this. We had some 600 teams. That roughly equates to like 1,300 people. 1,300 people all in this one area. And then we wanted to be able to say, ready, set, go, and have all of these cars just go. We wanted explosions out of the gate. We wanted people running over everyone else. We wanted ships bumping each other, like chaos, absolute mayhem. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, people be hearing go 3 minutes later.
Exactly. It would be terrible. It would be terrible. So the reality is that we're still going to have to split up into a number of servers depending on how many people eventually wash out of registration. They don't respond to that final registration message and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So the numbers will be bigger with this environment for sure than prior years, but they're not going to be as big as we would have liked.
Yeah.
So other than that, though, it's still Star Citizen. The game engineering isn't in, life support isn't in. So it's going to be roughly the same race as it was last year, with just a couple more people.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. I think that's that makes it a really interesting chance. Hi, Kat. Love a surprise kitty in a podcast. For those who are just listening, we've got a surprise guest, and it's very cute. She or he?
Yes. His name is Bastion, and he is just as much as a troll as he was as the character in Overwatch was.
Fantastic, Bastion. Well, thank you for being a good troll. Keep Nargo good at flight. So yeah, I think this is going to be a really good use case and just good chance for CIG to get an idea of like, okay, so this is just how bad static meshing can be, and more reason to get dynamic quickly. Like I hope that they can get some good data from running this event. I don't know if they've been in contact with you guys about that, but it seems valuable. Seems like a good time.
Oh yeah. Every year at the conclusion, they don't talk to necessarily everyone, but they definitely talk to Corsair, and Corsair relays all of the messages and stuff. Mm-hmm. The Daymar Rally is arguably the best stress test that Star Citizen ever gets. That's including all of PTU, all of Evocati, everything. Because there are more players with a specific focused goal of just being in one location than any other time.
Yeah.
And
Is
that
that why
provides a ton of
Daymar is
data
so
for
pretty?
CIG. I'm not going to tell you that CIG has altered Daymar specifically for the Daymar Rally. I will let you make that assumption yourself.
It looks so much better now. I'm grateful either way, whoever made that decision. It's a good one. But it is this is probably going to be the biggest party launch to Star Citizen ever see, right?
Mhm.
So that'll be interesting. And I think it's a good opportunity to point out to people who maybe aren't paying as close attention the difference of and why they're trying to do dynamic server meshing and not just sit at static, because it's very cool if everybody's at every corner of the galaxy, but like if we all want to actually do something together, the game's just going to run like it used to anyways.
Right.
All right. Do you think that the next patch 4.0.1 is going to have anything that makes a significant difference to you guys besides general desync fixes or anything like that?
Do you mean like in content?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't expect, like, the things that come to mind is engineering, maelstrom, things like that, things that they were talking about, fire propagation. None of those things I really foresee coming in the next patch. But regardless, I am still really excited for the patch, even if it is just bug fixes. There's a lot of things that have happened in the current patch that have just gone a long way to eliminating hours or even sometimes days worth of progress for setup. That would be a huge help if those were resolved. So that's what most of it I'm excited for.
Yeah. The fact, I mean, I'm hearing rumors about like the amount of blockers that they're getting rid of and stuff like that. Geez, it takes me back to the burn down. Were you here for that before 3.0?
No, I wasn't.
No. They had this thing. The 3.0 launch was emphatically and objectively worse than 4.0. And the lead up to it doubly so. Like we didn't get a single update for the 12 months before 3.0. We didn't get any content. So it would have been like if they had dropped 322 and then the next patch was 4.0 a year later. In that time, they would update us every week on the amount of bugs that were blocking them from releasing 3.0. And we just slowly see it trickle down from like 300 something all the way down to 0. Sometimes it'd go back up and then back down and then back up and then back down. And that's what that kind of reminds me of, just them giving us an update on like, we've knocked out this many bugs. This many more bugs popped up. It's good fun. I'm glad to see though that they're getting a good patch out pretty quickly here. In your opinion, do you feel like they're does it sound like they're more focused on fixing the game with this patch than other Januaries where they've done these kind of hot fixes?
Maybe, but definitely not because of the rally.
Well,
I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
Some people have pointed and said, "Oh, CIG is wasting development time because they're trying to get things ready for the rally," and I just don't think that's true at all. I think they're more motivated to get things ready simply because it's this whole 4.0. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they really made a ton of noise that 4.0 is out. They're still calling it the preview.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would not be surprised that once they get the actual 4.0 build into this stable-ish, for Star Citizen anyway, stable state, if they actually say, okay, now it's live, this is the build, and they might have some marketing around that, because it's a cool thing. I love that 4.0 is out. It's a huge milestone, right, for Star Citizen and the gaming community in general.
Yeah.
So that more than anything else, I think, has them motivated to get the bugs fixed for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't have associated it with the Daymar Rally. Obviously, some of those things would help, but if anybody's been on Reddit or Spectrum or any Discord server or global chat in the last 3 weeks, they would know that a lot of people just want CIG to get a little bit of a hot fix out because it's not running well. So
right.
I ask that because I wonder if it seems apparent to you. I know we usually get an update in January, and I feel like usually it helps with the stability and it comes like the week before the Daymar Rally, but I do wonder if this one they're focusing any more on like trying to fix the game, just because it's been such a struggle over the last couple weeks for people, and like you said, the 4.0 focus. What's your outlook for the rest of the quarter? I'm just curious, what do you think they're going to be trying to do over the next quarter? Because it's really up in the air based on their expectation setting.
I hope they stay true to their word. Well, I hope Chris stays true to his word in the letter from the chairman, and they just focus on polish, on getting the game to a playable state. I absolutely agree with Chris when he said, and I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, where if they could get the current state of Star Citizen where it had no bugs and it just worked, it would be the best game out there, in my opinion. If they could get something on parity with that, I'd be very happy. So I really do hope that their focus is bug fixing. I know they talked about things like base building, again, Maelstrom, fire propagation, engineering, and if those come out, great. And I know that there's a lot of people who are looking forward to that and upset that it was cut from the original 4.0 launch. So at some point, I expect that to come in 2025. I don't know if it'll be coming in Q1. It could. I don't know. But I just want bug fixes. That's all I want. If they do that, I'll be happy.
Yeah, a lot of people want that at this point. Would you even say, like, if it slowed down the features getting delivered, you would still prefer if they got it to a more stable, playable place?
Yes, I would.
Okay. What if that meant not 1.0 until 2033?
I've waited 7 years. What do you want from me?
Dude, it's a super interesting topic to discuss, I think, because everybody will have a different answer to that. Like, the game for each person gets just the right amount of playable for you to not really care that much how fast it's going at a certain level. And some people, that's like, it's not until you hit that 1.0, keep
That
going.
1 yeah.
Yeah, but some folks were like, at 3.0, they were like, hey man, just fix the bugs and I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, so the gameplay isn't there. The 1.0 is in here, but the experiences and fun that I've had in the game are very real, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I look at it. And we have a ton of fun doing the things that are in the game right now, building in or going through experiences, having and meeting new people, forming friendships, and just doing stupid stuff. Like, see how fast you can fly a razor through a caterpillar door, because why not?
Because what's life?
Yeah, exactly. Like, why not, right? Now, I understand that a lot of people, they want that persistence because they don't like the idea of, say, grinding Master Bounty Hunting cert with the Bounty Hunters Guild, only with the knowledge that that is going away, unequivocally going away. And I get that. I'm not saying they're wrong for thinking that. But all I'm saying is that I am personally having a ton of fun with the game right now, and it would spend way more time in the game if I didn't have to worry about spending a day to grind money, to go buy gear so I can outfit the Polaris, and then have that same Polaris that has 1 million plus credits worth of gear for like 30 different people get bugged at Pyro, so I had to claim it, which erased all of the gear.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, that sucks. But other than that, that's what I want. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you a question then. Would you prefer if CIG changed the way that features worked to fit the incomplete game now, or would you want them to continue to work based on how the game's going to be designed? Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying. That's a tough question, right? They released the 1.0 roadmap, so they said, here's how we want the game to be.
Yeah.
And I think it would be tough for them to change anything that didn't align with that in a very clear way. If they were to suddenly say, hey, this is bounty hunting, but this isn't how bounty hunting is going to be. This is just the interim. Mm-hmm. Then I think people would rightfully be upset. They say, well, why put in this system now when your 1.0 roadmap said this is what it was going to be? But when it comes to things like salvage, where we already have a system that's very well established and for the most part works, then CIG comes along and says, hey, our continued vision of salvage is adding X, Y, and Z step or such and such complexity that will allow you to do something better. Like, then it's a gray area.
Well, I think there's a lot of people ask for things to change in Star Citizen that would eliminate reasons for things to exist. Like, Jesus, now that I talk about it, I can't think of an example. Like people. Oh, okay. So Star Citizen, they just made a change. Here's a good example. They just updated it so that you spawn in your hangar, right?
Yep.
Now, we all know that's not how the game's going to be. I mean, we don't know where you're going to spawn, but we know it's not going to be your hangar all the time, every time, and that's just the only way it is. But that's the change they made to fit the problems the game has right now. So I'm wondering, how far do they go with that to make the game playable? But like, because you get people used to stuff like that, and then you try and bring in the real design later, and we can already see it. We got people super used to being able to just do your local inventory anywhere, and then they brought in the physical inventory. People hated it.
Right.
That's what's going to happen with control surfaces. It's going to happen with Maelstrom. It's going to happen with engineering. So how far do they go to make the game playable this year without taking people too far out of the element of what they actually want the game to be? Because we can also see that kind of stuff happening with medical beds and spawns and beds and things like that. Like, things are kind of changing.
That's fair. Well, if you want a closer to black and white answer, I would rather them get the game as stable as possible, and then come in later and say, "Hey, we're changing it."
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted a clear answer from me, and I say that only because now I personally feel like the game is in a state where while I know that things will change, I don't think things are going to change enough to alter my perception of what the game is supposed to be.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's a
when do you
me
think,
thing, right?
When do you think it reached that point for you?
The last iteration of Salvage, I think.
Okay.
When they had medical in, when they had the ability, because when they did Salvage, they introduced the ability for people to repair their ships with the spray gun, right?
Yeah.
Which told me that they were very clearly intending to repair ships with more powerful tools, etc. And they talked about base building, and then they shared their visions for base building. So I guess not quite with the last Salvage iteration, but probably the last Salvage iteration and the last Sitcon when they talked about their base building vision.
Yeah. Like over the last year.
Yeah, last year.
I think
very recently.
Yeah, I think it's probably a big point for a lot of people, because it finally felt like they had a good idea of direction for each thing. I wish that during that Citizen Con they had shown us at least one profession and their idea for it from like start to end, maybe mining or something. Just not even a design brief, but just conceptually. I think people are really wondering like, how is the Orion gonna work, or
Yeah.
like what's it gonna be like to use the what's that ship? What's the repair ship?
Vulture, the Vulcan.
No, the big one.
Well,
Crucible, yeah. Like, how is that gonna work? And we're all just sort of, oh, you're just gonna bring in a bigger laser and shoot some bigger rocks, you know? Like, we want to hear the good stuff.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Okay. Back to the next quarter, because I want to put you on the spot. What do you think is going to be the 4.1 lineup? We haven't talked about this on the podcast yet, because we're still trying to get 4.0. But let's say 4.1, which I do think this is the saving grace of them not having waited until Q1 to release 4.0 initially. 4.1 will likely be March, April time update. What kind of things do you think they can get in that update?
I would like to see them complete the shopping list from the original 4.0 launch. And
The
if
shopping list?
the engineering and the fire, two main things that I know that they cut,
Mhm.
and reputation, more reputation stuff. I know that they have
Yeah,
some
dude.
stuff now, but I was really looking forward to it. I
Yeah.
knew a lot of people were, but I really was looking forward to that reputation stuff. The whole idea that money is one thing, your ships are one thing, but that reputation, right? That's something that's hard to get. Takes a lot of time.
Dude, reputation has been like the I know we say a lot about carrots being dangled, but reputation has been the quintessential carrot for like 4 years. It's just been like, yeah, I'm gonna make progress here. I'm gonna get them on my side. I'm gonna be able to walk in here without getting shot. And then every time it gets updated, it's like one little like micro step closer to that reality. And I think it's in 4.0. Like I know it's supposed to be with the headhunters and the Citizens for Prosperity. Have you encountered that?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Like I know that there are places in Pyro where if you have negative rep with Citizens for Prosperity, you get shot on site, right?
Okay.
And then you can go to the headhunters. And presumably that you have positive rep with headhunters because you do lose rep for taking a mission for the opposing faction. This time. I think I said
Yeah.
that right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But
So
the part that sucks, the part that I'm looking for, right, is why? Why should I care? Right?
Yeah.
The other carrot on the end of that stick is okay, I put all my time to get reputation with you. What do I get? Do I get cheaper prices at your shops? Do I get exclusive access to your top tier like product? Do I get right? What do I get for all of this effort? That's what I'm looking for.
holy crap. You know what I just realized? Everybody's got problems with the NPC crew not being a thing in 1.0 because you'll be in danger flying alone in these places.
Yep.
But they've not said that we won't have wingmen. Because that's something that they've definitely worked on a lot for Squadron 42 and talked about openly. Because I was just thinking, what if one of the top tier things you could get for reputation are wingmen from the faction? Like the ability to have somebody flying with you somewhere. I don't know. There's definitely a lot of opportunities for them to use reputation, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that they've finally got it in, but I want more. I
No,
agree with
I
you.
get it. Right? Like they showed off NPCs flying with their player character in QT, right? Information.
Yeah.
A long time ago in Star Citizen Live or inside Star Citizen. And then you also have your wingman in Arena Commander, right?
Mhm.
One of the problems that I've always had as a security minded org is Joe Schmo is out getting attacked and he says, "Help, help, help." Well, we're halfway across the system. There's just no way we're going to be able to get to them to do anything meaningful other than clean up afterwards. I would love to see a system one day where if Joe again was like, "Oh, well, I have max rep with, say, the headhunters, send out a beacon." Well, immediately you have some AI ships show up and maybe
Yeah.
give him some cover, buy some time, right? That's the goal. Buy some time until meaningful help can arrive.
Yeah.
That's what I would love to see.
I think that's how it's going to work too. Especially in places like Stanton, I think even without the rep there, we're going to see eventually where if you get attacked in Stanton and you're near one of the big planets, like you're going to get AI security helping you out within a few seconds. That's how it should be, I think, but
Right.
um
A la GTA.
AI can barely fly right now. So I guess they're much better at flying than they are at walking.
I mean, hey, good meat shields are something, right?
Yeah, it does help. Let's go back to the Daymar Rally.
Yes.
This is a endurance race. There are plenty of other competitions in Star Citizen. There's flight, there's small races, stuff like that. But this endurance race is really particular. Do you think that it is something that's going to stick around in terms of popularity? It can run 7 to 10 hours. Do you think that's exciting enough to gain larger audience as Star Citizen grows, or will other more interesting shorter term things do you think beat it out?
Ooh. I have thought about that for a little while, and my answer is ultimately yes, but not the way it is. And I only say that because, as much as I absolutely love and respect Atmo's goal and idea of always running things in a live environment, as these servers continue to get bigger and bigger, the technical limitations of the hardware CIG is running it on, never mind the player limitations and just the logistical limitations, they're going to hit a hard stop. I think there's going to come a point where calls are going to have to be made to either downsize the event into something that's more manageable in terms of people, or there maybe an arena commander mode could be added where they simulate something like that. But I don't personally see a future where Atmo will be able to pull off 3,000 players running for 10 hours with even in the chaotic environment that they already are expecting. And maybe let me start over. I hope CIG proves me wrong. I want to be proven wrong. I do.
Okay. Yeah.
I've just seeing is believing, and I see static server meshing, and I see what limitations we're running into.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can really make dynamic server meshing to the point where you can have half of the Daymar Rally track run on a single server, and then propagate the rest of it on other servers, yeah, go for it. I don't personally believe it will ever be that good. I would love to be proven wrong, though.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, even just the idea of running it all in one place, one race, one instance means less security, less logistics, less preparation. You're spreading yourselves less thin, but it comes back to hardware and tech if it can even handle that.
Right. And as far as the entertainment value of it goes, it's really cool to see the start of these events. The if you look at the stream numbers and all of the analytics that Atmo has,
Mm-hmm.
it's never higher than when they say 3, 2, 1, go. Because that's where the most action happens, right? That's where the racers are actually vying for position, and they haven't quite settled into their run times yet. And then once they get out of the safe zone, they're weapons free, right? The racers can shoot at each other with their onboard weapons on
Mm-hmm.
the buggies, and that's when you start to see some of these conflicts, and that's cool. That's exciting. But as you go further in the race, those interactions are few and far between ultimately, and that's usually because the ground vehicles and the ground system isn't in a position where drivers can consistently make moves to close gaps. It happens, don't get me wrong. There are absolutely fantastic racers out there who know the track, they know their vehicle, they're able to take turns sharper, they're able to find better straightaways, right? But it's like navigational stuff. You don't have any of those Hollywood moments, many of those Hollywood moments where a racer is they're neck and neck and they're crossing the finish line and it's a photo finish. That doesn't happen in the Daymar Rally, right? Just because of the distance.
Yeah. We almost had that last year. Actually, our GII team, we were like fairly close with them. One of them is actually in the chat right now who is racing on that team. And it was a couple minutes difference in the closing, but like in the last 5 to 6 minutes in the lead up, they were like seconds apart, which was pretty cool. But yeah, it's definitely like if again we had everybody in one race all together, you'd see it more, right? Because there's more racers in that space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I really do hope that they can pull that off. I am interested in seeing, though, kind of what you said, what they can do with Arena Commander. I think CIG has a really, really good opportunity to capitalize on Arena Commander that in a way that could be, I don't want to say as big as the Persistent Universe, but it could be its own game.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they could sell Arena Commander on Steam or somewhere else, or put it on there for free as like a Trojan horse for Star Citizen. But that could also be our answer to the private servers, to like you said, running a Daymar Rally. Imagine if you could just have an Arena Commander server that encompassed Daymar. That would be cool.
I agree.
Do you think that Star Citizen is in a position to support esports very much if they didn't do that? Like you said, Atmo continued to run their stuff in the PU maybe, but as you go further and further to like more types of competitions, do you think that kind of stuff could work if Arena Commander doesn't pick it up?
Maybe. The difference between Arena Commander and Live is ultimately comes down to prep work, right? And Atmo will be the first people to tell you that they love Arena Commander for things like fight or flight because you can just hit the respawn button, right? But if you do in the live environment, suddenly you have to worry about if we go out in the middle of nowhere where the performance is best so we can get all the good shots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then we have to worry about making sure everyone can get there. Okay, so then we have to make sure that ships can jump there. We have to worry about people being able to respawn. We have to make sure that all of these things are in order when the camera says go.
Mm-hmm.
So if Arena Commander isn't able to sort of pick up that slack, I think it'll be difficult. But I've also seen the pure determination of folks in Atmo for making those events work. I think they could pull it off. I do. It would be hard and it would be chaotic, but I think they could pull it off.
I do wonder if the gameplay will ever be convincing enough to encourage that many people to take it competitively. It's good.
That is a good question.
It's very exciting, but I'm also a space nerd. So like the games that do well at esports are kind of interesting to more than just folks like myself. So I wonder
Right.
if it can expand enough outside of the community to have a life of its own, or if it'll always be just like a sort of insular part of the Star Citizen zeitgeist.
You know, I don't have a good answer for that, but I have seen, much like the determination of Atmo folks, I've seen how passionate some of the folks are from Atmo themselves, but also folks like XGR and other racing groups. Those people, they practice racing longer than I prep for security events, which is ridiculous. So it might not be the biggest community, but I think it'd be there.
Dude, yeah, size doesn't even matter. When it comes to Star Citizen success, you can't point. Well, I mean, you can point to a lot of places, but one place you can't not point to is the community. They
That's
have,
right.
from like the events like this to the tools that they've created to just like helping people out when the game has no tutorial or onboarding experience whatsoever. Back earlier, it didn't. Like the community was always kind of what carried it along. Oh, also the funding, by the way. there's that part.
Thing, you know.
Yeah. So good people, and appreciate them and appreciate you guys running the Atmo Esports and the Daymar Rally. Before we close things up for the day, I do want to ask kind of just general excitements and vibes from you for the rest of the year. What are you looking forward to when it comes to Star Citizen? Or we're gonna do things special today. Even other games. What kind of other games are you also excited
other
about?
games.
Yeah, dude, I'm crazy.
Oh gosh,
I'm wilding today.
I don't know. I've been like playing Pal World in my off time, and I'm talking like maybe a couple hours a week, just because of just the time constraints. But what I'm excited for in Star Citizen,
wait. Hold on. Aren't they getting sued by Pokemon right now?
They are.
How's that going?
I don't know.
Along? No, okay.
I'm not really.
You're just playing the game.
I'm just playing the game.
Okay.
I think it's a fun game, so I'm playing it.
All right. Well, cool. I've never played it, but I've heard good things. What else were you talking about though? You're gonna.
It's just in Star Citizen. Like Star Citizen is definitely my main game. Even when I'm irritated at it, it definitely takes up the bulk of my time. I'm excited for just, again, polish. I want to be able to jump in with friends and org mates and just not have to question whether or not the game will bug out on me today. Just, hey, let's go to a contested zone. Let's see what we can get into. Let's go hunt down a bounty. Let's go make some money. Whatever it is. I want to be able to just jump in and expect it to work. That's what I want.
Yeah. It's hard to want to put an evening towards a game that you could spend an hour working hard at, and then it just smacks you. Because the game can be fun, but like when you're looking for a guaranteed fun time, there are a lot of choices out there. It's looking like a good year for games, though. I mean, even for space folks, we'll be talking about a few different games this year on the podcast here. Obsidian's having a big year. They're putting out Outer Worlds 2. They're putting out Avowed like in a couple months, but Outer Worlds 2 is coming out. That should be a pretty fun one. I think Falling Frontier is coming out. You ever heard of that one?
I haven't.
It's a space-based RTS, and it's got like a really good kind of like expanse vibe to it. Everything feels very physical, and the distances and the way that everything works. Like you shoot a gun at a ship, and that if it misses the ship, it just keeps going. So if there's like another ship in the battlefield, it'll hit that. It's like a really cool real-time strategy game.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah, and then Exodus is coming from ex-BioWare devs. Obviously, the new Mass Effect is probably going to have some kind of trailers coming out. Like, it should be an interesting time for sci-fi folks this year, or Power
Yeah.
World, or Power World. I don't know about Power World. I'm also really hoping that we do get base building. I like stability and everything. Playability is all good for Star Citizen, but I keep doing more and more research on how the other parts of the game might improve, like mining and salvage and stuff. I have a video coming out about this, I think this weekend, I hope this weekend. And it literally is just looking at each part of the game and how it might improve if they make playability better. And half the times I'm going through it, I'm like, well, if they add base building and crafting, this would be so much better. And it's like for mining, for salvage, for security, exploration, everything gets improved. So I hope that's something that comes through with the whole playability push.
Oh yeah, the not just the base building, but the crafting element that comes along with it. So many folks who are really into mining are ecstatic for that change.
Yeah.
They're so tired of having to go out and it's like, oh well, this isn't quant gold or the 4 other precious materials. It's junk. Move on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I know so many people who are just like, I want to be able to go out and find any rock and know that it has a value, if not to the market, then to me because I need it for crafting something. And I agree.
Yeah.
I want those materials to mean something.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think of the whole, or have you heard any of these miners talk about the change from multi-material rocks to just like changes based on quality?
Heard a lot of mixed things on it. So I'm not someone who's big into mining myself, but I've heard some things for it and I've heard some things against it. But now that I've said that, I can't recall specifically what any of those good or bad things are. So I know Red Monster and Dora the Destroyer, excuse me, have had a lot of things.
The other Dora.
I'm sorry, Dara. I have had a lot of things to talk about it, and at the end of the day, I think if CIG is able to, regardless of, I'm going to choose my words carefully here, regardless of how they make players get those resources, if those resources are at the end of the day worth the time to get them, then CIG will find a happy middle ground to make most people happy with the gameplay.
God, I hope the economy takes that step up this year. It sounds like they're on one and they're making progress there, but
what do you think, Tomato? I'm curious. So the Polaris torpedo, $500,000 ish per torpedo. Do you think that's too much? I have my own opinions, but do you think that's too much?
Genuinely, I don't know, because it all comes down to what you can do with one of those torpedoes, and we know that's going to change. So
Sure.
I think in the current state of the game, interesting topic because we were talking about this earlier, it would make sense for them to boost the price of torpedoes to astronomically high levels, because the benefit you get from having one is so much higher than, you know, the downside of not having one. I think like you can do a lot with a torpedo and not have to deal with the consequences of it.
Right.
So I get it being super expensive. 500,000 expensive? I don't know. That is a lot. But there's also not really much for us to use those on anyway. So nobody's really going to need that size torpedo other than like the Arlington mission, maybe some of these global events, or if you want to definitely make sure somebody is dead. Like I want that Aurora to be extra dead.
Extra dead. Yeah. No, I get it. We had a situation in Pyro right at the launch of 4.0 where we were at one of the executive hangars, one of those areas where you're getting some of the comp boards, and we had an enemy Polaris, a player Polaris, show up. And I was like, oh, cool. We can finally use our torpedoes in a meaningful way. They were shooting their torpedoes, and our PDCs were getting them. So I'm like, okay, well, this, just like the Idris in Phase 3 of Save Stanton, we're going to have to get right up next to it and fire a torpedo point blank. And then we had the guy who was operating the torpedoes. He's like, it's not working. It's not working. It's not working. And so like mid-combat, we had people trying to swap out of the terminal, and the torpedoes just wouldn't fire on our ship. So like the one time we had a chance to use these really expensive, powerful torpedoes, they just wouldn't fire. But
we basically blew ourselves up with them. So I think you did better.
That's fair.
Yeah, we're seeing the first steps of capital ship gameplay, which is really cool because it's already changed the idea of how you enter combat in this game. The addition of PDCs is different. Engineering was going to make a difference, and just having ships that can control area like a Polaris is something we haven't had before. So it's cool to see where it's headed in terms of all this larger ship combat and mixed arms stuff. But it needs work. The story of Star Citizen.
That's right.
Yeah.
2 years away.
Yeah. Well, I want to say by the end of this year, things are going to look good. I do think by the end of this year, we're going to be like, it's going to be that sort of more stable environment that I think it'll be a plateau, kind of like 3.3 was, where you can start to tell a new class of people that they can play Star Citizen. I think that's the end of this year. So
I agree.
I look forward to the progress they make. I hope they can stick true to their word and what they've planned. We see 4 updates. We see playability. We see apparently a sandworm. And hopefully Daymar Rally runs well. I hope that the servers hold up.
Heck yeah. That's all I can ask for, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that really is. Thank you so much for joining me for this talk and for sharing about the Daymar Rally and the security challenges that have been faced there. I know our own org is going to have 3 separate teams in the race, I believe. We also are contributing some of our own security defense forces to help with the event, and I will be there on set. Hello, everybody. If you want to come and check out the event and you don't want to see the amazing official streams, you should still have everything up on the screen. But if you want to hang out with the tomato, I will be doing my annual coverage as well, and hopefully making a video to cover the immense amounts of effort that has gone into this. So once again, thank you so much for hitting me up. Can you let the folks know where they might find you, your org, or come in to join the security efforts you do?
Yeah, easiest way to find us is right under Discord. We have custom links, so it's https://discord.gg/WOS9, and jump in there, and we'll be happy to either answer any questions you have or get you set up with security.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining me.
Thank you.
And hopefully the event goes well.
Thank you very much.
See you all next week after it happens.